informed principal sir to join, ma'am.
Okay, pa. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, we should start within 5 minutes, sir.
5 minutes, that's fine. I'm here, so I'll become visible then.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Poornima?
Yes, sir.
It's all right. I'm just looking for your name and I found it. It's
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sir, good morning, principal, sir. Good morning, Alagarsan, sir.
Good morning, ma.
Happy morning, madam. Happy morning, madam.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Sir, vanditara
Sir is
madam.
online, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir, happy morning, sir. Professor,
Very happy morning.
thank you, sir. We warmly invite you. Thank you very much for your kind continuous support with us. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, brother.
Sir, Chief Guest, sir is online, sir. Principal, sir.
Yes, madam.
Bill Ashcraft, sir is online,
Sir, happy
sir.
morning, sir. Sir, Bill, sir, happy morning, sir. Sir, Bill Ashcraft, sir. Professor.
good morning. I'm here.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, we warmly invite you, sir. Welcome, sir.
I'm having a little trouble with the sound, but bear with me.
Please, welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
Sir, shall we start, sir? Principal, sir, shall we start? Okay, sir. Very good morning, everyone. Literature is a comprehensive essence of the intellectual life of a nation. Language is the roadmap of a culture. It tells you where its people come from and where they are going. Greetings to each and everyone present here. I'm feeling amazingly special to have this chance to welcome the dignitaries, faculty member, intellectuals, the students for this wonderful international conference on language, literature, and culture. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. M.R. Lakshmi Narayanan, sir, our principal, Trinity College for Women, to give welcome address.
Happy morning, one and all present here. In this wonderful, fantastic Friday morning, PG and Research Department of English, Trinity College for Women, Arts and Science, Namakkal, Tamil Nadu State in India, executes a 3-day international conference entitled Language, Literature and Culture in the dates of 23rd July, 24th July and 25th July 2021. On this subject, in this inaugural function, I warmly, cordially invite our chief guest, Professor Bill Ashcroft Faha, Emeritus Professor, School of the Arts and Media, UNSW, Sydney, Australia. Welcome, sir. Our special invitee, Professor Rebecca Huck, former chairperson, Department of English, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. We warmly invite you, ma'am. Our college well-wishers, eminent Professor Dr. T. Alagasan, Associate Professor, PG and Research Department of English, Government Arts College, Autonomous Salem, in Tamil Nadu State in India. Sir, we warmly invite you, sir. Our college Honorable Chairman, Mr. T.K. Sengodan, our distinguished Secretary, Engineer K. Naluswamy, our college Academic Director, Dr. Arasu Parameswaran, the Program Coordinator, Mr. Poornima, our period assistant professor in English Trinity College Women, and all the special invitees, all the faculty members, all the research scholars in various colleges and other educational institutions, and dear students. First of all, on behalf of our Trinity College for Women, Arts and Science, Namakkal, Tamil Nadu State in India, we warmly invite you in this inaugural function. So, it is a wonderful day. English is a universal language. LLC, language, literature and culture. A famous, eminent personalities are arrived here. Once of all, I convey best wishes to all the organizers. Wish you all success. Once again, I cordially invite one and all present here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. T. Alagasan, Associate Professor of English, Government Arts College, Salem, to felicitate the gathering. We welcome you, sir.
Good morning. Respected Secretary of Trinity College, through Nallusamy, respected Dr. Lakshmi Narayanan, the Principal, Trinity College, Namakkal, revered Professor Emeritus, Professor Bill Ashcroft Faga, School of the Arts and Media, University of New South Wales, Sydney, Australia, a popular theorist of post-colonial and postmodern studies, respected Madam Professor Rebecca Huck, former chairperson, Department of English, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, dear Ms. Poornima, the organizer of this event, dear Mrs. Priyadarshini, Assistant Professor of English, Trinity College, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning to everyone present in the virtual meet. Well, it is a proud privilege for me to be a part in the academic festival conducted by the Department of English, Trinity College for Women, Namakkal. It is pandemic time. Educational institutions are kept closed due to the orders of the governments. Still then, teaching, learning is possible. If there is a will, there is a way. Trinity College, Namakkal has the will and finds its way. After conducting a marathon FDP program for 14 days, they are ready now with an international conference on language, literature, and culture. Ms. Poornima is to be appreciated for her enthusiasm and sustained interest for organizing such greater activities, that too at quick succession. Conducting conferences of this magnitude need good guidance and dedicated team. Dr. Lakshmi Narayan, the principal of the college, deserves a greater appreciation for his motivation, guidance, and execution. There is a saying that for the success of every woman, there is a man behind. But here it is Dr. Lakshmi Narayanan who is behind for the success of 10 young women of the English department of Trinity College. Kudos to the principal and the young team of teachers and the management of the college. I would like to say a few words about the conference. This international conference on language, literature, and culture is known for its uniqueness. There are 7 speakers addressing on these issues. The ideas will be divergent since the speakers are from different countries. Apart from that, we had 2 great personalities today. Professor Bill Ashcroft Faga, the chief guest from Australia, and Professor Rebecca from Bangladesh. Language, literature, and culture. Which one is more important? Which one is greater than the other? What is the function of everything? I believe that everyone is interconnected. Everyone depends on the other for its survival, right? Regarding language, why do we use? What is it? What is the basic purpose? We know it is to share our ideas and emotions. In accordance with the different purposes to be served, language is used in different ways, and we respond differently to each particular use of language. For example, there is the language for science, marketing, advertising, political oratory, journalism, poetical effusion, and worship, etc. The meaning of any word is realized in the context. We should not take the literal meaning of words on all occasions. Whenever we meet, for example, our friends or acquaintance, we ask, "How are you?" It should not be mistaken as a request for your medical report. It's only meant as a friendly greeting. And there are a few functions for language. We all know informative function, which is the basic one. All information, whether it is true or false, correct or incorrect, sometimes we pass on misinformation, but This is also branded as informative function. The next important function of language is expressive function. Poetry gives the finest examples of the expressive function of language. No poet wants to communicate mere information. Every poet wants to communicate his or her own feelings and attitudes. Expressive language is used not only by poets but others too. Sometimes the lovers, the worshipper of God, even beggars use such languages. Sometimes one man uses such language. The other important function of language is the directive function. The most obvious examples of this directive functions are commands and requests. For example, our mother tells us to say prayer before going to bed. Here, she does not want to convey any information to you. At the same time, she does not want to arouse any particular emotion in you. Her aim is to get results or to make you do what is indicated. We wear uniform dresses. It's also a kind of directive function. Sometimes we use by blending all three functions. A sermon by a priest may be a good example. The other important function is ceremonial function. It is otherwise known as social function, that is the patty communion. We use different kinds of expressions as words of greeting on social occasions. Even our usages like good morning, how are you, etc. comes under this category. These are the dominant, the basic functions of language. Then what is literature? Literature refers to the literary genres from 19th century onwards. It is the collected creative writing of a nation, people, group, or culture. It is a humanistic study of a body of literature. It is a method of recording, preserving, and transmitting knowledge and entertainment, and can also have a social, psychological, spiritual, and cultural value. Then what is culture? It is a collective term for behavior patterns socially committed from generation to generation. In ordinary language, it means good manners. It is a complex whole which includes knowledge, beliefs, art, morals, laws, customs, and any other capabilities and habits required by a man as a member of society. Elwood, a noted critic, says, I quote, culture includes all of man's shelter, machines, and even system of industry. I unquote, the cultural goals shape the behaviors and values of people. A deep understanding of the cultural values and social need is necessary for curriculum makers for developing a curriculum related to life. Education should transmit then those aspects of culture that are desirable and are to be continued. This is the conservative role of education. Thus, the relationship among language, literature, and culture is so vibrant to the extent that a change in one ultimately affects the other two. Every language mirrors the culture directly. A language, through its culture, enriches or impoverishes the culture itself. It is said that there are 6,500 spoken languages in the world today. Even every language is unique in a number of ways. Language is one of the most important aspects of any culture. It is the way by which people communicate with one another, build relationships, and create a sense of community. This conference is a confluence of various nations, various dialectical language variations, various cultures. Despite these differences, we speak, behave, and project ourselves as one community. That would be the success of this conference. As Tamil poet Kanyan Pungundranar says, I quote, Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir in Tamil. Translation, to us all, towns are our own. Everyone is our kin. I hope and I wish that this conference is yet another milestone for the Department of English, Trinity College for Women, Namakkal. I wish the program be a grand success. Thank
Thank you, sir.
you. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Priyadarshini?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Success is not like an accident. It's a form of hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love of what you are doing or learning to do. Now it's time to welcome our chief guest. So I welcome Miss Poornima ma'am, the convener and the head of UG, Assistant Professor of English Department, Trinity College for Women, to welcome the chief guest. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Priyadarshini.
Thank you, ma'am.
Once again, my humble greetings to everyone gathered here for this intellectual conference on language, literature, and culture. This is Poornima, Assistant Professor of English, Trinity College for Women, Namakkal, Tamil Nadu. Thanks for the opportunity given. I am so honored to introduce the eminent personality of the day here. As per Theodore Roosevelt's words, the great man is always the man of mighty effort. Certainly, our chief guest is the best instance for this. Born as William David Ashcroft, our today's memorable chief guest, Professor Bill Ashcroft, sir, is a renowned critic and theorist. He is the founding exponent of post-colonial theory, co-author of The Empire Writes Back, the first text to offer a systematic examination of the field of post-colonial studies. He is author and co-author of 21 books and over 200 articles and chapters, variously translated into 6 languages, and he is on the editorial boards of 10 international journals. His latest works is Utopianism in Post-Colonial Literatures. He started his career as a teaching fellow in University of Sydney in 1970, and at present, he is an emeritus professor at the University of New South Wales, Sydney, Australia, and he is a fellow of the Australian Academy of the Humanities. Ashcroft sir is an expert of Australian literature, post-colonial literature and theory, and Australian studies as well as cultural studies. He has gained significant cross-cultural experience in teaching, research, as well as administration. As his employment experience demonstrates, he has taught in several cross-cultural situations: Papua New Guinea, China, Germany, and he is conversant with the challenges of both lack of knowledge and stereotypes of Australian culture. His research is fundamentally cross-cultural, and he has extensive experience of teaching Chinese students at University of New South Wales. Bill Ashcroft sir has taught in his faculty since 1988. He was instrumental in developing the Australian Studies program in the faculty, the teaching of post-colonial literary studies in the school, and he has developed various forms of innovative, interdisciplinary, and electronic educational initiatives. He spent 3 years from 2005 to 2008 as chair professor of English at the University of Hong Kong. Sir has received numerous awards such as Global Award for Academic Excellence, Exemplary Web Course Award, Distinguished Research Award, Crawford Prize for his PhD thesis, Colin Roderick Prize for Australian Literature for his MA thesis, 3 Innovative Teaching Awards, and so on. He is a member of various bodies such as Australian Universities Language and Literature Association, Association for the Study of Australian Literature, European Australian Studies Association, Indian Australian Studies Association, American Association for Australian Literary Studies, Association for Commonwealth Literary and Language Studies, etc. It's a fact. We all must agree that I cannot complete his excellence within minutes, and definitely it's a need of the hour. So due to time concern, let me stop here. Really, I'm finding some difficulty of searching words to express his greatness. No doubt, we all know that he is an admiring personality, a great man, a man of honor, a man of inspiration, as well as a man of excellence. It's my greatest privilege to wholeheartedly invite Professor Bill Ashcroft, sir, to address the gathering. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your kind acceptance and valuable presence. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kanaga. I've been invited to give some brief introductory comments for this very interesting and very important conference. I hope my remarks are longer than that fulsome introduction, but this connection between language, literature, and culture is something that has interested me for a very long time. And language, of course, is fascinating and very controversial in a post-colonial sense. You see, we may have a race, we may belong to a nation, we may live in a particular place, but we don't just have a language. For many people, our language is us. So changing that language and writing in a different language, particularly a colonial language, is a source of great argument, a source of great conflict and controversy. And I want to suggest that the language issue in post-colonial studies reveals something very significant about the capacity of people to use the language. Now, we all know the story of Macaulay's Minute and how Lord Macaulay was convinced that the magnificence of Western culture could not be separated from the English language, and so encouraged English to be taught. And in particular, how is he going to do this? How is he going to teach Western values? Well, they couldn't teach the Bible. That would have led to riots. So they decided to teach English literature, which functioned as a surrogate Englishman in its highest and most perfect state, according to Gary Viswanathan. So when the institution of English began to form and frame Indian elites, something happened that the empire could never have suspected. You see, what happened was that intellectuals, creative writers, artists appropriated that language and made it a tool of self-representation. Now, that language, which was supposed to have been used to form Indian elites in the image of the West, instead was taken by the literature and transformed into a vehicle by which Indian and other South Asian writers could communicate their own reality to the rest of the world. So this appropriation of the English language was an important, actually far-reaching and significant event, and was a single event, of course, because the appropriation of English and its transformation into a vehicle of self-representation became something that actually transformed what we understand to be English literature. And so today, that rather than talking in a foreign language, in a language that wasn't me, wasn't us, the language was appropriated. English, the colonial language, was appropriated to become a vehicle of self and cultural representation. So the link between language, literature, and culture is very, very deep and very, very strong, because in particular, in the post-colonial sense, in the post-colonial context, literature was a powerful conveyor of culture. And it was done in what appeared to be a foreign language, but in fact was done in a language that was appropriated to make it work for Indian writers. And so I want to suggest that language transformation was the most subtle, most powerful form of cultural resistance. Now, we often think of transformation and resistance as opposites, but in fact, transforming the language and in time transforming our notions of history, transforming our notions of place, this transformation resisted being overwhelmed by Western society and particularly imperial culture. So the spread of English in the post-colonial world was related to its adversarial relationship with the mother tongue, with received English. And so what happened was English language became a multifaceted thing, and it was appropriated in various scenarios, various contexts, both in Africa, South Asia, and really all around the world. Now, as a member of a settler colony in Australia, I can well understand how false this notion of the language is us can be, because I am not English, I'm not British, but nevertheless, we are a monolingual country that speaks English. Now, we've developed it in our own way, in particular ways, but I don't think we've developed it as powerfully and as comprehensively as writers in South Asia. So I just want to suggest that the connection between language, literature, and culture is deep, it's powerful, and it's rhizomatic. And it is something that is well worth discussing and even arguing. And I'm sure the arguments will continue. Whereas Ngugi wa Thiong'o said on one hand that to speak the colonizer's language is to remain colonized in your mind, Chinua Achebe said, English is one of the African languages we have, and it's a language I use. So that particular argument has continued to the present day. But I want to suggest that my perspective is that literary writers, creative writers, have been a powerful influence in transforming the language, and in that process, transforming the very discipline of English literature itself. So I wish you well, and I'm sure that this conference will raise some very interesting issues about language, about literature, culture, the relationship between all three, and the transformation that occurs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable words and your presence, sir. Really, it's a boon to all. No words to express our gratitude, sir, but hats off to your service, teaching service, as well as guidance, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. And
I feel extremely happy to express my gratitude to Professor Bill Ashcroft for her, sir, for making this conference an intellectual one. Thank you, sir. Now I'm here to invite Mrs. V. Kavita ma'am to welcome Professor Rebecca Haq, Department of English, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Good day to you all. Every woman's success should be an inspiration to another. We are the strongest when we cheer each other on. I'm Kavita, Assistant Professor of English, of good cheer to proffer a special address by addressing a special woman personality who has addressed us multi-talented in all the fields. She is none other than Professor Rebecca Haq, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. Professor Rebecca Haq is a poet, writer, translator, editor, literary critic, and essayist formerly affiliated with Asia Pacific Writers and Translators, that is APWT, and with the New York Writers Workshop. Ma'am was awarded a gold medal for attaining for the first class first position in MA Literature from University of Dhaka in 1980. Ma'am served as a chair of the Department of English from 2009 to 2012 at University of Dhaka in Bangladesh. Ma'am has toiled as tenured faculty for 41 years. Ma'am was awarded a certificate of distinction for a summer course on 20th century American studies at the University of California and University of Vanderbilt for a month in 1995 in Los Angeles and USA respectively. Ma'am was a Killam Scholar in 1990 to 91 at Dalhousie University, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, where she read the literature of war and drama under the supervision of the late Professor Rowland Smith. Ma'am was also a research scholar at American Studies Research Center, Hyderabad, for a month in 1987 and studied women's literature with Professor Sally Shuttleworth at Leeds University, England, for 6 months in 1985. Ma'am has an enormous contribution to an academic and creative writings in national, international journals, periodicals, and magazines. Apart from that, Ma'am has published 3 books. Commencement Poems and Occasional Essays was published in 2003 and it was reprinted in 2009. Women, Gender and Literature was in the year 2003 and Tennessee Williams, a centenary tribute in the year 2007. This work was a co-edition. We are very much exhilarated to have such a wunderkind personality whose presence in this conference would have added one of the milestones in our English department. Heartfelt welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be participating in this international conference. And this is my first visit, albeit virtually, to Tamil Nadu. And I have been to Hyderabad, and South India is one of my favorite places. Now, Professor Ashcroft has given us the historical, colonial, post-colonial context about language, the English language, and the relationship between the colonies and the colonials. Now, I would like to talk about more recent happenings. Multiculturalism, multi-ethnicity, the diaspora. These are the global trends now, migrations. And language has become fluid. We are using some major languages like French, English, German as major tools of communication. And the colonies which were colonized by France or England or Britain have the languages of those countries now. They have absorbed, they have made it their own, as Professor Ashcroft's famous title, The Empire Writes Back. Now, this also happened quite some time ago. Recently, we are now focusing on translation, because along with these languages, the major languages which we use for business, for communication, for progressive technological use, we are now upholding and recovering the native languages, the regional languages, and recovering, and we are supporting the native literatures. Regional literatures contain the culture of that particular geographical region, of the particular people. So my case, Bangladesh has a very strong international historical role regarding the relationship between language and nation and culture and the identity of a people. Now, the Bengali language is our identity in Bengal, just as in Africa with the political movement towards decolonizing the mind and writing in native literatures in Igbo, and you had the you have in India also Gujarati, Marathi, and you have Tamil, you have Kannada. All these languages, they also contain the rich cultural production of that region, of that people, not only oral literature, which is the identity, which is the expression of a region, of a people, of their arts and crafts, song and dance. All expression is language, is expression of culture, is expression of their own celebration of their region, of their food, of their music, of their history, of their origin. The legends and the myths contain the origin stories of a particular region, and these are later incorporated into epic cycles and become representative of a culture and a community and a region. And so, along with English literature and the English language, the focus now and the emphasis now is to also write in the native language, in the regional language, and those of us who write only in English, it is our burden to translate from our mother tongue into English so that the richness and the efflorescence and the cultural loads of our regional literatures are disseminated throughout the world. Just as we have German literature and French literature translated in English, we are now also translating Bangladeshi literature, Bengali literature into English. And what we are also doing is writing and recording the oral literature. Bengal has a rich storehouse of oral literature, song cycles, epic cycles, and you have balladeers, you have minstrels going from village to village, and the 6 seasons of Bengal each has its own festivals, and each festival has its own distinctive music and dance and song cycles which depict the daily life of the people, and which also encourage the creation and production of arts and crafts. The creation of arts and crafts is also a very fundamental part of a culture of any community, of any people, and it is also a special language. The sculptor, the painter, the weaver, the goldsmith, the potter, they are remarkable artists who carry the distinctive motifs and designs of a particular region. And these are then transported to the entire world. The carpet makers who capture the designs and the colors. And of course, Bengal has its rural base, the Gangetic Delta, and so many parts of the world have such beautiful natural imagery to capture, not only in literature, in poetry and song, but also in arts and crafts. All our designs, all our colors we take from the world of nature, from the earth, from the sea, from the skies, from the harmony of the universe. So the breeze, the wind blowing through the tree, the harsh sound of the Kalboishaki, the storm, the lightning, these are again, in language transferred into poetry. We are able to use onomatopoeic sounds. So language, the words, the vocalization that we are gifted with, the voice, or the sign, the semiotics, everything is expression, is language, and that is transmuted, transformed into cultural artifact when we create any piece of literature. One picture, one word, of course, is denotative and connotative. It contains a picture, it contains an idea, thought, and emotion. So the word becomes a picture. The picture conveys my culture. It conveys my identity. It conveys my communal rootedness. It conveys my history. It conveys what I have in common with the rest of humanity. Now, I would just like to conclude by saying that the world today in the pandemic is now in isolation. Somehow I have the feeling that we are closer now. We are looking into our inner selves, into our better nature, and we are trying to find common humanity bond. And in the diaspora, in other cultures, we are trying to unite and find a common humanity in arts and crafts and expression and creativity. And this, I think, is a positive side of this pandemic, that it has made us understand that the baser self has to be uprooted and the nobility in humans has to be restored. Now, language and literature and culture, as earlier honorable speakers have mentioned, are united, fused. And one point I would like to make is that the world today is in flux, migrations, and Edward Said has pointed out in Reflections of Exile that modern European civilization culture is also a product of exiles, emigres, refugees. And this is what we see now also, that people are in the diaspora absorbing new ideas, new languages, but they are also looking to hold on to their own cultures. So there is this fusion, and we use the phrase melting pot earlier in the 20th century. Now the millennials will be talking about fusion more than anything else. And we have fusion in culinary arts, we have fusion in music, we have fusion in all arts and crafts and literature. So this is the movement towards the 22nd century, where we keep what we have as our own, our origin, our original, our culture, but we also absorb the other as well, because we are no longer separate. It is a multi-ethnic society, a multi-ethnic world, a cosmopolitan world. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your valuable words, ma'am. Really, it's wonderful. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your presence.
I wholeheartedly express my thanks to Professor Rebecca Huck, ma'am, for exploring her thoughts. Thank you, ma'am. Gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. The more you express gratitude for what you have, the more likely to express gratitude for. I feel this is the perfect time to show our gratitude to all of them who have been in this inaugural. Even though I want to show my sincere thanks to our chief guest, Professor Bill Ashcroft Fahasa, Emeritus Professor in School of the Arts and Media, UNSW, Sydney, Australia. The special address by Professor Rebecca Hockman, former Chairman, Department of English, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. And respected Secretary Sir and Chairman Sir, our Honorable Principal Dr. Emma Lakshminarayanan Sir, Sincere Dr. Alagarasan Sir, Associate Professor of English Department in Government Arts College, Salem. The Administrative Officers, PG and Research Department of English, Ms. S. Poornima Ma'am, the convener and all the faculty members. Once again, I thank you all very much for your energetic participation and keeping passions to this inaugural ceremony. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you, Priyadarshini. Thank you,
Thank
sirs
you,
and
ma'am.
wisdoms. Now, let's move to the first session of International Conference on Language, Literature and Culture. In this regard, I invite Mrs. R. Priyadarshini to introduce the chief guest. Priyadarshini? Priyadarshini? Your voice is not audible, Priyadarshini.
Am I audible,
Yes,
ma'am?
yes, you are audible now.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, sir is on the
You
line,
can
ma'am.
introduce. Yes, sorry, sir. You can introduce
Okay.
the chief guest now.
Okay. Honor bespeaks worth. Confidence begets trust. Service brings satisfaction. Cooperation moves the quality of leadership. Ditto in the quad. Our day's hero has proved his quality of leadership, confidence in his field, passion on his profession, and now he is such an honorable chief guest among us.
Priyadarshini? Priyadarshini?
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible now only.
Okay, ma'am. Let me start again, ma'am.
Priyadarshini? Are you online? We can't hear anything, Priyadarshini. Sorry for the technical issue. So, on behalf of Priyadarshini, let me introduce our honorable chief guest of the day, of the first session. Some are our chief guest is the best instance for this. Dr. Haider Govan sir is an associate professor in post-colonial and comparative literature. His PhD dissertation title, Literary Representation of Environmentalism, a Post-Colonial Eco-Critical Study in Selected Global South Novels. He is currently a faculty member of Al-Woman University College, Baghdad, Iraq. He has lectured in many local and international institutions and has written several articles on post-colonialism, environmentalism, women's narratives, and the Middle East. He is a specialist in post-colonial literature and the representation of the Arab world and the Middle East in the Arabic and Western literature. His research interests directly relate to the rights of marginalized minorities, migration and diaspora, women's studies, violence and terror, resistance and survival, histories and memorization, and other pertinent debates. Besides the academic career, he is a simultaneous interpreter with excellent experience in interpretation, a poet and novelist. He has published a volume of poetry, an offering of peace, and a novel in the process of text editing. Really, we have an amazing personality here for the first session of International Conference on Language, Literature and Culture. Now, let me call upon our honorable chief guest to give his presentation. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much, Poornima, for this wonderful presentation and for this wonderful introduction. I would like to I would like to thank all of you for this wonderful and successful conference about language, literature, and culture. Actually, I feel honored to be part of this such wonderful conference. And first of all, I'm going to start with the topic that you titled your conference, which is the most successful and I can say at the same time arguable trinity that we deal with: language, literature, and culture. My topic is recent trends in literary theory. Actually, literary theory is a vast concept that includes those historical, cultural, philosophical developments that we have from the very beginning of the emergence of this concept or of this trend. Literary theory is the body and methods we use actually in a practical reading of literature. By literary theory, we refer not to the meaning of a work of literature, but to the theories that reveal what literature can be or can mean. Literary theory is a description of underlying principles. One might say the tools that we attempt to understand literature. All literary interpretations draw on a basis in theory, but can serve as a justification actually for very different kinds of critical activity. A literary theory that formulates the relationship between actually the author and the work that we have from the very beginning about this concept or about this term when we studied, when we were students actually, and when we studied literary theory or a critical theory, and sometimes we even call it the theory that deals with literature in specific. Literary theory, as I mentioned, offers varying approaches for understanding the role of historical context in interpretation, as well as the relevance of linguistics and unconscious elements of the text. Nowadays, literary theorists trace not only the history and evolution of the different genres, but they went far beyond race, gender, environmental even studies, or post-colonial studies. They went to dig deeply in the cultural studies to bring something new to what we call to this human world. And especially if we talk about the pandemic of the COVID-19, we feel that even the literary theory itself is moving forward in a fast progress. And this progress that lastly we see in literary theory in recent years has sought to explain the degree in which the text is more the product of a culture. And this is the same topic that critic Bill Ashcroft and even scholars of this conference, tried to discuss. And here, as I mentioned, literary theory in the recent years has sought to explain the degree in which a text, a literary text, either a poem, a novel, a short story, or a play, is more the product of a culture than an individual author, in turn how those texts help to create the culture. So now everything is moving, especially when we talk about the literary theory, that the literary theory nowadays is very close to culture, to the product, okay, because literature is a product of a culture. And literary theory is moving actually forward and leaving behind traditional literary criticism, formalism, and new criticism, Marxism, new historicism, and cultural materialism. And it moves to discuss and to include actually studies, recent studies like ethnic studies, post-colonial studies, gender studies, and even feminism that we know in the last 3 decades is moving forward to include, politics, to include culture, and to include even the ecosystem or eco-criticism, and that's what we have, eco-feminism and environmental issues that we have, especially when it comes to pandemics, disease, or even those actually, hazard, risk that we face or challenge nowadays. We see that literary theory actually is coming very close to include all those issues. Here again, to mention that within the discipline of literary studies nowadays, we see that the intellectual assumptions on which a literary work is moving or is including, and that's why the purpose nowadays, or the task, the great task, the main task of literary theory is to include all those principles derives either from internal analysis or this external analysis of a literary text. Also, I would like to mention a good point about the cultural studies nowadays are sweeping the whole literary arena actually of literature, and that's we notice especially about the great number of cultural studies that we have in the global south, to be more precise, either in India, Africa, the Caribbean, or even in the MENA or the Middle East. And the cultural studies nowadays, including not the only thing that we have in the past, what I mean is, gender studies or, queer theory or post-colonial studies, but it comes to include, cultural issues that we have nowadays. It comes to interact with the culture that we live in. And that's why cultural studies, and at the same time, translation, becomes one of those successful tools or mediums to include a vast, actually, corpus of literary, text or works, which were produced by those, post-colonial nations, including the Middle East and including, India, Africa. And what we have is a literary theory actually succeeded in bringing those post-colonial literary works and even nations and even cultures to interact with literature in the medium either of the translation or the medium of comparative studies or comparative literature. So here we notice that literary theory is moving very fast, and this move includes, as I mentioned, those cultural issues, including globalization, that is regarded as one of those critical issues on the surface of the literary theory. And the attention that theorists, I mean literary theorists, bring to to the literary issues nowadays. They do strongly believe that literary theory, either directly or indirectly, is addressing the cultural issues that surround the individual, and they believe that bringing your culture, or let me say that translating your culture, interpreting your culture here, especially in the medium of translation, is regarded actually as one of the cultural issues that has a great success nowadays. And the medium of a translation in the cultural studies and even in the post-colonial studies, which includes the issues of gender's emancipation, is regarded actually as a big success when it comes to literary theory and to discuss critical theory of criticism, to be more precise. I'd like to mention that comparative studies also succeeded to bring literature, language, and the culture together. Comparative studies, especially in the global south, and to be more precise, in the MENA and in the Middle East, succeeded to bring those post-colonial texts that were written in other languages, I mean in the native or indigenous languages, either Indian text, African text, or Arabic text. All those literary texts were brought into English to actually to interact with the culture of the post-colonial, and at the same time to give a voice to those voiceless or marginalized nations. And such issues were highly presented in a good manner, and we see nowadays that either consciously or unconsciously that such literary texts, I mean those literary texts which were written by those indigenous or native post-colonial culture or nations, found a great spot or space. And it is not about the place nowadays, it's about the space. And this globalized world becomes very close to address the literary theory from a different angle. To conclude, this vast topic, I mean literary theory, or the recent trends of literary theory, I would like to mention that environmental studies and pandemic studies, ecological or eco-critical studies nowadays occupy a great actually spot on the surface of the literary theory. And reasons behind this is that what we challenge nowadays, especially when it comes to climate change or to COVID-19 or pandemics in general, push those literary theorists to include, let's say, critical issues or viral concepts in their literary, in their research works, or in their even in their critical discussions. And we noticed at the same time that literary theory actually is succeeded to include all those issues, and at the same time is still addressing those issues from different perspectives. At the same time, literary theory, which includes ethnic studies, migration studies, and even studies to include gay and lesbian studies, are what we call the frame of such vast theory, which is called literary theory. To conclude what I have mentioned, that literary theory is moving very fast, and at the same time leaving behind the works of Spivak, Edward Said, and Homi K. Baba, and Franz Fanon. But at the same time, the literary theory, to be more precise, is using a good benefit of such critical scholars or literary theorists to include recent trends, especially in the environmental literature, and at the same time in the cultural studies, which can address community, society, or culture, to be more precise. But it is, nowadays literary theory is addressing culture in a practical way, is addressing culture and at the same time not neglecting what culture is actually suffering from. So it includes all those issues in which a culture by itself, to be more precise, especially those post-colonial cultures and nations face or challenge issues to include environmentalism, and to include cultural issues which come to address equality and gender roles. I would like to stop here and to give a space to other scholars to discuss their recent trends and concepts and topics. And at the same time, I wish this conference, this wonderful conference, a great luck and a big success to actually to continue with such recent topics and trends, especially when it comes to language, literature, and culture. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable words and wonderful guidance, sir. Dear participants, if any queries, you can ask, sir. I think no more queries, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your presence and guidance.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible, Priyadashini.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you is the best prayer that anyone could say. I say that one a lot. Thank you expresses extreme gratitude, humility, and understanding. Let me show my thankfulness here in the form of vote of thanks. I must convey my thanks to our chairman, sir, secretary, sir, and principal, sir, and most importantly, our chief guest, Dr. Heather Jobber Goban, sir, and Mrs. Poornima, ma'am, the convener, and all my dear colleagues. Thank you all. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you all.
Once again, I thank you, everyone. Thank you. We shall wind up now.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Let's wind up, ma'am.
Yes.